I've done a lot of reading this week, and unfortunately, there's a few things that I've read that's really ticked me off as I read some of these pastors across America that are writing about how Christians should not be engaged in the political arena. And I've read and I've seen heard some podcasts, where some guys were talking about how we shouldn't even have the American flag, in the church. That is absolutely insane. I've never in my life have heard and read some of the things that I've seen. Our nation is at the brink of absolute disaster. It's fallen apart. It's on a fast track to hell. And unfortunately, there are many pastors and many preachers that are spreading some things that's just absolutely ludicrous. It's ridiculous. Reed Cooley, sir, I'm sorry to start off this way, but I'm absolutely fired up about some of the stuff that I've been reading from some of these pastors. And I don't want to get into name calling, but I'm hoping that I know some of them will watch the show because some of them will text me or email me about some of the things that we say. And but man, we got to have every Christian has to be involved. Every Christian has to be engaged. Donald Trump just launched a coalition yesterday, and it's a Believers for Trump coalition, and it is 100% targeting Christians and trying to get Christians to engage in the political arena. That is one thing that God and Country is about. It's about trying to engage Christians and to get Christians involved in the political arena. And so, man, we need everybody. We need all hands on deck. We've got less than 80 days. We need all hands on deck.
Well, that was very well put, Dan. Otherwise, I'm doing okay. So you got some bad news. I got some good news. So Disney did cancel season 2 of its horrible new woke Star Wars show, The Acolyte. So that's a huge win. I'm excited about that. Not nearly as excited about these idiots at the Democratic National Convention jumping out of their seats over some of the dumbest crap I've ever seen from these speeches and all this other kind of, just dumb stuff happening there. That's really awful stuff, what you're telling me, though, about these people who don't think that Christians should be, as you put it, in the political arena. I would like to know more.
So what they're saying is that, and I get what some of them are saying. They're saying we need to be focused on what really matters, right? We need to be focused on, discipling people. We need to be focused on, telling people about Jesus. And I think that you can do all of them at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can engage in the political arena and engage in discipleship, and you should try to do both at the same time.
Absolutely. And you don't have to choose one or the other. You don't have to. You don't have to say, I can't be involved in a political arena because I've got to be focused over here. Now, you could do them simultaneously, but to discourage people from voting, to discourage people from being registered to vote, to discourage people, from engaging, in the political arena, to me, it saddens me to see some of our leaders, whenever it comes, to this area. And instead of discouraging, Christians from being involved in and being engaged, we need to be encouraging people. We need to be encouraging the people that attend our churches, to be registered to vote and to make sure that they get out and vote. Listen, at my church, Reed, we're focused on lots of different fronts. We're focused on Slidell. We're focused on trying to win people to Jesus. We're focused on telling people the good news that Jesus died on the cross. He shed his blood. He rose again on the third day. We're trying to reach out into St. Tammany Parish. We're reaching out into our state. We hosted a youth rally where we had hundreds of teenagers come from all over Louisiana and Mississippi to where we preach to them and try to encourage them. We're involved in our schools. We support, some of our local football programs and try to bring them. Football season is about to start, but we're going to be bringing them dinner on Friday night and trying to get the gospel there. I mean, we support, lots of over 50 missionaries and different countries around the world. And so our church is engaged in so many different fronts, as it should be. And so, we are fighting against some of this nonsense that they want to put in some of these books, in St. Tammany Parish and the children's schools. So the Christian, we're involved in lots of different areas, and I believe that you can do both. I don't believe that you have to pick and choose where you're going to be engaged or where you're not going to be engaged. I think you can battle both. I don't think you have to neglect one for the other.
Wrestle with principalities and powers, right?
Absolutely. And what irks me even more is some of these guys that, are out there, writing these articles and talking on these podcasts, and some of them are criticizing, me personally. And I'm fine with that. But most of these guys that are saying, we don't need to be involved in a political arena, we just need to be focused on building a church. A lot of those guys aren't building a church anyway. I hate to say it, but their churches are dead. Their churches are dying. They haven't seen anybody baptized all year. They're not winning people to Jesus. Their church doesn't even go soul winning, but yet they want to criticize people that are engaged in the political arena, saying we don't need to be focused there. We need to be focused on this. While all they're doing basically is just holding on until Jesus comes. I don't believe that that's how the Christian ought to be. I believe that we can have joy. I believe that we can have peace. I believe that we can build churches in today's world. And I believe that we can be engaged in the political arena, but it's going to take work. It's going to take getting in. You're not going to be able to make everybody happy. Some people are going to be offended. It doesn't matter what you do. When Jesus lived on this earth for over 33 years, there were people that were offended. He offended people every single day. In so much, Reed, that they crucified him. They took him to a cross. The Jewish people, they declared, crucify, crucify, crucify. The Roman soldiers beat him with the cat o' nine tails. The Roman soldiers put a reed upon his head and beat it down. The Roman soldiers put nails in his hands, nails in his feet. They blindfolded him and punched him and mocked him and said, "If thou be the Christ, tell us who it is that hit you." Jesus offended many people. Matter of fact, he flipped their tables over in the church and kicked them out of the church because they turned the church into a den of thieves. Jesus offended people. Some of you are going to get offended watching this podcast and hearing me say some of the things that I'm going to say. And listen, I don't apologize for what I say, and I don't apologize for people getting offended. What I say is we need to get involved. We need to get engaged. Get off your couch. Get involved in the arena. And I love it that Trump has launched this Believers for Trump, because we need believers, we need Christians to be involved. We need Christians to be engaged. Yes, we need to build strong churches. Yes, we need to be involved in our schools. Yes, we need to be involved in trying to support missionaries around the world. We need to be involved in building buildings. We need to be involved in all of these areas. And at the same time, we can be and should be and are to be involved in the political arena.
So that was very well put, Dan. I have to ask, you're not reading the comments under your own post, are you? You're not supposed to do that, man. That'll really mess with you.
So some of these guys, no. But I do get a lot of emails, and I do try to read, some of the, I honestly don't have time to read a lot of the comments underneath my post. And unfortunately, I wish I did. I just don't. I do try to respond to some. I do try to read a few. But I don't have time to read, there's lots of comments.
And a lot of this is coming from people who claim to be Christians, right?
Absolutely. Some of them coming from some pastors,
Wow.
And it's different denominations, but it's just sad, unfortunate. And some of these are the ones that, like, we're going to hammer the Methodists for a few moments. And if you're a Methodist, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but
there are some good Methodists out there.
There are some.
But the leadership of their denomination is very troubled right now.
Absolutely. And so, of course, they're going to be saying to people like me, I don't need to be involved. You don't need to be engaged, because I ripped this transgender garbage. I ripped this drag queen garbage. And they're promoting that mess. So whenever you're allowing, some of these guys to get up there and they got these guys, they've got their fingernails painted. And they go get, their fingernails are all done up and they're painted. They got makeup on, and they're wearing, looks like their grandma's dress. And they want to get up there behind a pulpit and open up the Bible. That is a disgrace. That is absolutely. You're talking about reprobate. That is reprobate. And that party, look, they're not going to support me regardless. They're not going to support the Republican Party regardless. And so they're not coming over here to this tent. It ain't happening. They're going to vote for, and they're going to be with people like Kamala Harris every day of the week and every day of the month, every day of the year, because Kamala Harris supports that mess and she supports that garbage. And so at the end of the day, it's some of those type of people, but then it's even some people that believe a lot like me whenever it comes to the Baptist denomination. Even some of those guys are, well, we don't need to be involved, in the political arena, but we've got to be. We've got to be. And it's just, I just read a few things this week that have really fired me up today, and that's why I wanted to start the show.
I can tell, man.
Just hitting that because it's aggravating in a way, because, some people buy into that. We need to be involved in, we don't need to be involved in a political arena because we need to be focused on, and they're not even focused on that. They're not even focused on reaching people. They're not even focused on that. My point is, and I've got a lot of points today, but my point is we're losing our nation. We're at the brink of World War III. We're at where you got a Kamala Harris running on the Democrat ticket with this lunatic waltz. You know, the dude puts tampons in boys' bathrooms. I mean, that's a Democrat ticket.
In other words, if you're not going to get involved now, when will you ever get involved?
I tell you when they'll get involved, when they're in prison. You know, I'm going to use this for example.
Whenever they're in a modern-day gulag, then they might be thinking, maybe I should have engaged the political arena just a little bit. Yeah.
You know, even before COVID, there was a lot of, I took a lot of heat from some pastors before COVID. But then whenever COVID hit, you know, and the governments were shutting down their churches, a lot of these pastors were calling saying, hey, can you help me here? Can you help me here? And I was gladly, you know, to help, you know, to do all that we can as far as going against some of this, some of this violations, you know, that some of these governments were putting on churches. And so, and since then, a lot of these guys that were attacking constantly, they have gotten involved in the political arena because they saw.
Now woke them up, in other words.
Absolutely woke them up. And so, but now, you know, we've got some of these guys, not some of them, but some of these other guys that are like, we shouldn't even have an American flag, you know, we shouldn't even sing patriotic songs. You know, I mean, come on, guys. I mean, that is ridiculous, you know, that we would even go that far. And so we've got to be involved. We've got to be engaged for our children's sake, you know, for the future of our children. We've got to be involved and we've got to be engaged. And then whenever you look at the United States of America, you look at all that America does in the area of missions with the churches. I watched a video this week, Reed, of a man and a woman outside of the DNC. They were outside on the street. This guy walked up and interviewed them. I put it on my YouTube channel. This guy walked up and interviewed them. The guy that was interviewing them asked them the question, do you think that Trump supporters should be put into re-education camps? That was the question. Both of these people wholeheartedly, absolutely, yes, 100%. The guy said this. Here's what the guy said. The interviewer asked the guy, he said, why do you hate America so much? That's the question that he asked this guy that was outside of the DNC. He said, I don't hate America. He said, I love America. He said, I hate Trump supporters. That's what he said. He said, I hate Trump supporters. Then the guy asked, do you think that they ought to be put in a re-education camp? And the woman and the man were both, yes, absolutely. We need to put them in a re-education camp. A couple of things with that, Reed. First off, I'm a Trump supporter. I mean, I'm supporting Trump 100% in November. There's a lot of people that are supporting Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Reed, I don't have any hate in my heart toward any of them. This is the United States of America, last time I checked, and people can support whoever they want to support. I mean, they could support Kamala Harris, they could support Kennedy, they could support Trump. I don't hate anybody that supports Kamala Harris.
Well, you can't have hatred in your heart and go to heaven.
I don't hate anybody that supports Kennedy. Listen, I think they have some whacked out views. I think they have some crazy views. But Reed, I don't think we're to put any of them in a re-education camp. I don't think we're to be sending people to a re-education camp. I don't think we're to be doing any of that. This is the United States of America. All because you have a different view than me does not mean that I hate you, or it does not mean that you should be put in a re-education camp. Now, I want you to leave our children alone. I want you to keep your crazy ideology out of our schools. I want you to leave I don't want you to have drag queens in our libraries, you know, dancing in front of 5-year-old little girls. I don't want that mess. But at the same time, I don't hate you. And they're advocating hating Trump supporters, and they're advocating, some of these people are advocating, you know, putting Trump supporters in re-education camps. That's absurd. That is crazy.
Well, our good friend Chris McDaniel, he says a lot of very intelligent things on his show, Chris McDaniel's America. But he said one thing a few nights ago in particular that really stood out to me, and that I think is relevant here. It was that people really don't understand what they want. I think that one of the miscalculations that people in our camp make, like the liberty wing of the Republican Party, is that we assume that people want freedom. We assume that people want liberty. I think that one of many things that the COVID period showed us was that not everybody wants freedom. Not everybody wants liberty. I think people, and there are a lot of people with a very dark totalitarian impulse that lurks inside them that I think goes all the way down to perhaps a psychoanalytic or even a spiritual level, right? I can tell you that whenever it came to some of the neighbors that I had in Austin, Texas, they absolutely loved the opportunity to wear that mask and to lecture everybody else in the neighborhood about why they should be wearing a mask, to rat on their neighbors for not getting the vaccine. My next door neighbor kept asking me, have you gotten vaccinated yet? Have you gotten vaccinated yet? Oh, well, it's time that you get vaccinated. You need to get vaccinated. And had we been in Canada instead of Austin, Texas, I guarantee that some of my neighbors would have ratted me out to the authorities in the same way that many people in Canada did. We had it horrible in this country. There were churches in Kentucky, for example, that were being shut down while BLM and Antifa riots were allowed to take part across our country, burn down churches, burn down businesses, sack entire neighborhoods. But I think that COVID, it showed us, I think, in a much clearer and up close sort of way, there's a dark totalitarian impulse that exists in a lot of our neighbors, maybe half the country, maybe even more at this point. I don't think that, this interview that you're talking about with the Democratic National Convention, they're outside of the convention, is some isolated thing. I think that maybe the biggest distinction we have in this country right now, the most important distinction, that is to say, is not between rich and poor. It's not between black and white. It's really not even between right and left. It's between those who value freedom and those who want to see totalitarianism shoved down everybody else's throats.
Reed, I agree. What happens is, so I can explain it, articulate it like this. You have a group of people out there that they want to control. They want total control. They want to control everything about you. And the Democrat Party, and I hate to say this, but there's even some like that in the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
That they want to control you. And how do they control you? They control you by a lot of this red tape. You go try to build a house. You try to start a business. You all these taxes that we're having to pay. I mean, a lot of these things that they're doing is their way to control. Thankfully, we live in Mississippi, and we don't have near, the red tape, that some of these other states have. I know that we have some elected officials here in Mississippi that are really pushing, to get rid of, some of this red tape. I know Michael Watson, our Secretary of State, he started a whole program that was just focused clearly on cutting red tape. I know our elected officials right now are trying to do away with the state income tax. I think the state income tax needs to be done away with. I think the federal income tax needs to be done away with. I don't think people should be paying taxes on their income. I think that's wrong. We pay so many different taxes, whenever it comes to our income, whenever it comes to our house, whenever it comes to, our tags, whenever it comes to, there's so many different ways that we pay taxes. It's just another way that they control, and they want to control you. It's kind of like this. If I take a boiling hot water, and I'm sure you've heard this example before, but if you take a boiling hot water and throw a frog in it, that frog is going to jump out as quickly as he possibly can. But if you take that same frog and put him in some cool water and slowly heat up that water and let that water get to boiling water, what's going to happen is that frog is going to be boiled alive. And what's happening here in America, a lot of people are being boiled alive.
Yeah, we're at a boiling point. There's zero question.
Absolutely. They're being rocked to sleep. They want the government to take care of them. They want to sit on their front porch and wait for the first to come and get that check come every month to their house. And whenever you do that and you begin to program people that the government is going to take care of you, what happens? One, they're in that water and it's boiling. Two, taxes are going to have to be levied. More taxes. You can't keep giving away money unless you print more money. And that's what they're doing. That's what's causing inflation. That's why inflation is so high. It's because they're just constantly printing more money. That money's not even being backed by anything. It's just a Federal Reserve note. It's not being backed by gold. And so inflation is skyrocketing. And so now you have, when you go buy milk at the grocery store, it's costing $4 or $5 a gallon. You buy gas, it's so much per gallon. And so all of those things are happening because inflation is going up, because, we're just keep bringing more people onto the government's, on the government's back, more people. And so what's happening is they're having to print more money for that in order to keep sending out all these checks. So inflation is rising. And so now what's having to happen is they're having to raise taxes at the same time. So they're printing money constantly because more and more people are coming onto the government system. And at the same time, they're having to raise taxes on corporations. So now what's happening is prices are going up because taxes are going up. Prices are going up because of inflation. And so what's not going up is wages. That's not going up. The amount of money that the government is sending to you every month is not going up. It's going to stay the same. And so, but you're going to pay more for milk. You're going to pay more for gas. All of those things are happening. And so people are just in that water and they're being boiled alive. They're being boiled alive. It's comfort. It's, they had that comfort, as long as they get that, that paycheck from the government every month, they had that comfort. And it's going to destroy. I mean, our debt ceiling is already, what are we,
35 trillion.
$35 trillion in debt. That is unbelievable. We cannot sustain that. I've said this many times on the show, Reed, and I'll continue to say it, that the greatest threat to our nation is not China, it's not Russia, it's our debt. That is the greatest threat to our nation.
It's our debt, and the overwhelming majority of that spending is going towards a defense budget that's just way too big. All these foreign wars. So whenever it comes to foreign policy, I've put it very simply, I support the foreign policy of Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, and George Washington, the foreign policy of the Founding Fathers, which is that we should focus on America first, America only, that we should worry about our domestic concerns, that we shouldn't be engaging in empire, just like the British Empire from which we broke, over 200 years ago. So I think all of that was very well put. Last week, you and I did a very good job of talking about how Kamala Harris's policies are going to bankrupt this country. For example, price controls, right? So whenever you put a price control on the cost of milk, for example, just to talk about, just to reference the example that you gave a moment ago, whenever you put a price control on a gallon of milk, let's say nationwide there's a price control at $6 for a gallon of milk. The producers can no longer afford to produce that milk. That's going to cause scarcity. So that scarcity, what's the government going to do in response to that? They're going to come in with more regulations, more economic control. Whenever you talk about price controls, the federal government, or any government for that matter, locking in place what a business is allowed to charge for whatever product or service they have, that is simply step one towards centrally planned communism. Whenever you and I call Kamala Harris Commie Kamala, is it a cute epithet? Sure, absolutely. But it's not hyperbole. We're not exaggerating anything. We're being very clear. Her economic policy, it would utterly devastate this country. It would remake this country from the ground up. And I think that that's what the Trump campaign needs to be focusing on. I've gotten a little bit frustrated with the Donald Trump campaign over the last several weeks because of missed opportunities that I'm seeing here and there. It's infuriating me. So just last week at one of his rallies, Trump started making jokes about how he's a better looking person than Kamala Harris, right? And he's making all of these silly sort of remarks. I'm not seeing very many attacks from the Trump campaign on Truth Social. He's back on X now, on X, or really anywhere where they're going after what is Kamala Harris's weakest point, which is her utterly devastating economic platform, which is just abysmal. Even CNN commentators have attacked just how bad her economic platform, if that's what we can call it, actually is. We need to stop with the name calling. We need to stop with the personality attacks. I think the last 10 years have showed us that middle American voters, moderates, they don't really like Donald Trump's personality that much. So I think that that's quicksand. That's a losing territory for Donald Trump. Every commentator on the conservative side that I've listened to, they have this right. They're saying, look, we have got to focus on the policies. We have got to make this a policy-focused campaign, a policy-focused election season, because when it comes to the economy, those voters in the Rust Belt, those voters in Middle America, those swing state voters, they're going to trust Donald Trump more than Kamala Harris any day of the week whenever it comes to the economy, right? Which is just, it is the top concern. It's been the top concern for the last 4 years among voters in every single poll that's been taken. I am wondering who the heck is on Donald Trump's campaign right now, given that there are so many missed opportunities, so many things like that. That worries me. This is an election that's going to be decided by tens of thousands of votes in a few states. It is that incredibly tight. And we have to take into account the fact that the voter fraud is probably going to be even more massive this election than it was in 2020. We can't afford to be making these kinds of mistakes, and it's infuriating me. Another weak point that the Democratic Party has, another one of their vulnerabilities, I might say, is just how ridiculous this Democratic National Convention was this week, right? Did you see that 18-foot tall intrauterine device, a big statue that looked like an intrauterine device that was being carried outside the DNC convention?
Duh.
Yeah, and that was utterly ridiculous. And of course, maybe you've seen that they're literally offering abortions and vasectomies.
I have seen that.
You have seen that?
Yeah.
Imagine being the kind of guy who goes to the DNC to get a vasectomy.
Yeah.
I mean, well, where are you going, Bob? Oh, I'm going to the DNC to get my spermatic cord tied. What? We really do live in the most clownish timeline. I can't wrap my head around some of the thinking that goes into this. But you and I have said it, over the last several weeks, very well on this show, that we do not need to underestimate just how exuberant, just how excited and mobilized the average Democratic voter is for this new Harris-Walz ticket. You and I understand how ridiculous the ticket is. I think a lot of people in the middle understand that it's an utterly radical and untenable ticket, but that does not mean that those Democratic voters are going to be less energized. One thing that I noticed that did worry me just a little bit, I'm not black-pilled, but one thing that did worry me a little bit whenever I was watching that convention is just how excited those people were about all of it, right? Did you see Joe Biden's speech, for example? It was towards the beginning of the convention. Did you know they had him speaking at 11:30 p.m. Central Time?
Yeah.
Or Eastern Time, sorry, 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Like, if they could have waited until like November 5th or November 6th to have Joe Biden speak, they probably would have done that. But that was an utter clown show. And they were depicting Joe Biden as though he was a third Cincinnatus, a modern-day George Washington, retiring from politics after his second presidential term to go back to Mount Vernon. It was utterly hysterical, utterly ridiculous in the utmost degree. But these everyday Democratic voters, man, I think that they're excited, they're energized, they're willing to do whatever it takes to win. Massive amounts of voter fraud, give amnesty to as many migrants as they have to in order to push Kamala Harris over the top.
I'm going to go back to what you're talking about with the economic policies, because I think you're right. I think that we have to focus on their policies, and we have to focus on our policies and the contrast between the two. You have to ask yourself the question, was I paying more or less for gas underneath Donald Trump? Was I paying more or less for groceries underneath Donald Trump? Was the economy better or worse under Donald Trump? And so you have to do a contrast. And so, like right now, look, I do not shy away from calling out, bad policies on both sides. But right now, our focus has to be on defeating Kamala Harris and Walz. It has to be on that. Me and this other Republicans disagreement, we got to lay that aside right now. We got to focus on beating Kamala and Tim Walz.
Criticize Donald Trump's policies after we get him in office. Don't tear him down before we cross the finish line.
Absolutely. And Donald Trump doesn't need to be tearing down other Republicans either. We need to leave the governor of Georgia alone. And let's beat Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. We need to leave Joe Rogan alone, and let's beat Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. That is the target, not Republicans. They are not the target. Right now, we are up against the Democrat ticket. That's who we're up against in November. Every single House member is up for re-election in November. Every single one of them. Many of our U.S. senators are up for re-election in November. Our focus has got to be on beating the Democrat Party. It cannot be on beating up other Republicans, at least not right now. And I know some of our very hardcore, to-the-right conservative Republicans in Mississippi don't like for me to say that, because they want to constantly be on the attack. And I don't think that's a good strategy at all. I don't think that we need to be constantly on the attack against other Republicans. Listen, whenever it comes time for whenever January gets here and we're in session, man, we need to have good debate all day long, every day about policy. And I'm all about having those debates. But right now, we have our candidates. Right now, it's Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And you say, well, I don't like J.D. Vance. Okay, well, he's a heck of a lot better than Tim Walz. You know, well, I don't like Donald Trump's personality. He's a whole heck of a lot better than Kamala Harris. And so we have to focus on beating that Democrat ticket up and down the board, not just in the White House, but every single House seat, every single Senate seat, even if I don't like, you know, some of these Republicans, per se, because of their policy. We still have to beat the Democrats in November. And I'm going to tell you this, the Democrat Party they are very good at this because they know how to focus and get zeroed in. Yeah, they beat each other up in the primaries just like we do. But when primaries are over and they have their person, like Kamala Harris, they are all uniting around her. I don't see a lot of fractions out there. Maybe there is a little bit here and a little bit there. But from what I'm seeing is that they are trying to come together to beat Donald Trump.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took My Pillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented My Pillow to bring you the best pillow in history, My Pillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that My Pillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The My Pillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last My Pillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. My Pillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new My Pillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
Resort.
Well, to be fair, whenever it comes to the Democratic platform, right now it comes down to one thing, and that's hatred for Donald Trump, destroying Donald Trump, doing whatever it takes to throw him in prison or to get rid of him in some other way, to dispatch of him in some way forever. There was an ad that was played there at the DNC convention, and it was toying with the idea, was teasing the idea that Kamala Harris, as a prosecutor, was going to put Donald Trump in prison for the rest of his life, right? And that's what it emphasized, the fact that he has 34 felonies, and it emphasized the fact that she has a law enforcement background. And it was whenever Hillary Clinton, she took the podium there for a bit, the entire Coliseum was chanting, lock him up, lock him up, lock him up. That is the entirety of their platform right now, and it's much easier to rally around something that is as simple as one plank in the platform, right? Whereas our job is a little bit more difficult. We have to go after Kamala Harris's economic policies, which I think is her most vulnerable point. And we have to actually explain to voters why it's bad, why it's going to destroy their livelihood, why it's against the working class, which the Democrats claim to champion in the first place. So we have our work cut out for us a little bit. I'm a little frustrated with how the Trump campaign is responding to some of this. When it comes to any criticism that I have of Trump between now and Election Day, I am choosing to keep it limited to strategic concerns that I have with him, not policies, not whatever he did in his first term. I think those are the kinds of criticism that is good right now, is people on the right understanding that there are missed opportunities coming from the Trump campaign and that we can't be missing those.
The Democrat Party, Kamala Harris, they make it easy. I mean, whenever you look at their policy, look at inflation. I mean, it's outrageous.
Kamala Harris can't even define what inflation is.
Correct. I mean, you look at the prices of everything. It's insane. I mean, that in itself is a commercial. Every time somebody goes and pumps gas, every time they go and buy milk, that in itself is a commercial to not vote for Kamala Harris, to vote for Donald Trump. And then they want to raise taxes. They keep talking about raising taxes on corporations. What people don't understand and that they don't get is who is really going to pay those taxes?
It's going to be us. It's going to be like working class, middle class, and lower class people.
Yeah, so you take a corporation, right? Name me a corporation, that they're going to raise taxes on.
BP, maybe.
BP.
I'm joking.
Okay, let's just talk about British Petroleum. Okay, so we're going to raise taxes on BP. And so BP, we're going to raise their taxes. Who's going to pay? Who's paying those taxes? The consumer.
Down to us.
It comes to the consumer because, boy, I know this is deep and I don't want to get too deep, but BP isn't BP without people. BP does not stand alone. It stands because of people. And so in order for BP to make money, people have to be doing a job. People have to be buying the goods. That's the only way that they can make money.
And they have to stop spilling oil in the Gulf, of course.
Correct. But that's still people. And so it's people. People are buying oil. People are buying gas. People are paying the taxes. It's people. And so they get on TV and say, we're going to raise corporation tax to 46%. And people cheer that. I'm like, do you not understand that it's the people that make corporations work? That without people, there is no BP. Without people, there is no Walmart. Without people, there is no Kmart. Without people, there is no gas stations. Without people, there is no milk. Without people, there is none of those things. And so at least milk in your grocery stores, you can at least go get milk, from a cow. And, if you want to get some cows and go that route, have at it. I've got several cows and I don't recommend, I don't go get milk from my cows. I go to the store and get milk. But my point is, it's people that are paying these taxes. When it comes to import taxes and export tax, all those taxes is paid by the people. It is by the people. And so that is what people need to understand, is that whenever they're raising taxes, it's the people that's going to be paying these taxes. It is not.
Imagine if the founding fathers could look forward in time and see that half the country is cheering for more taxes.
Wow. They would be rolling over in their grave if they could see what is happening today. But if I'm the Trump campaign, and as a Republican, I'm going to continually hammer Kamala Harris on their policies. She keeps saying this on day one. Well, Kamala Harris, you've had a lot of day ones already. You're already 3.5 years deep into this thing. You've already had, your day one was a long time ago. All of this inflation is because of policies of you and Joe Biden. All of this taxation that is happening and going on is all because of you and because of Joe Biden. And so when you look at, if I'm the Trump campaign, I am going to constantly be hammering Kamala Harris on inflation. I'm going to constantly be hammering her on prices. I'm going to constantly be hammering her on taxes, on the tax burden that is being passed to the people. I'm going to constantly be hammering her over job creation. I'm going to constantly be hammering her on their spending. And let me just say this, that if we will focus on these things, if we will focus on these policies, I don't think that she can win in November.
One more. There's one more issue I think we could focus on, and that's the border. The border has very quickly emerged into a top 5, sometimes even a top 3 issue for the American voter, and it stayed that way. over the last couple of years. Whenever it comes to the border, I think that those middle American swing state voters, they're going to trust Donald Trump more with that issue than they will with Kamala Harris, because Donald Trump is quite literally the only president, at least that I know of, that's actually tried to do something about immigration. I can't think of any president in history who's really done a whole lot about the immigration crisis beyond signing in amnesty for more and more of these illegal immigrants, right?
Yeah.
But I think that the one dark horse in all of this is going to be, and this is unlikely, but man, if this happens, I think it might be game over for us. And that is if the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration, as we might call it, the Jill Biden administration, there we go. If the Jill Biden administration signs into law some sort of amnesty or some sort of voting rights for all these illegal migrants that have come over the border over the last couple of years, 3-4 years, perhaps even longer, I think that might be game over for us, because you've done a very good job of talking about this over the last several weeks. They're playing the long game, but that does not mean that they're ignoring the short game either.
Yeah. So there are several issues, Reed, that I think we need to hit Kamala Harris on. One is the spending. One is the inflation. I think we need to hammer her on that. And then you just brought up very, very well the open border. I mean, there are millions of people coming into our nation, and we don't even know who they are. We don't know who these people. There's rapists, and there's all kind of people.
They're the worst criminals from Latin America. These are people who are so criminal that Latin American countries don't want them. And for whatever reason, the United States is saying, come on in, we'll bring you right in. Come on, you can kill our people, you can rape our people, do whatever you want to them.
Now, I'll say this, that every single person that's coming across the border is not a rapist, is not a murderer. We understand that. But how many are we willing to let come across with the 100? If it's 5 of them that are rapists and murderers that comes across with every 100, well, you let 1,000 come in. I mean, now you done let 50 of them come in. And if you let 10,000 come in, now you done let 500 come in, as far as rapists and murderers. And so we understand that everybody coming across the border is not a rapist and a murderer, but there are rapists and murderers coming in. And we know that because they're coming here and they're raping and murdering. And we see it in the news all the time, to where an illegal immigrant is here. He's been arrested and he's been let go right back here in America. He's been arrested again, let go again, and he's raped and murdered. And when are they going to... The Democrat Party is willing to sacrifice that for those 95 voters. Absolutely. They're willing. You're right. They're playing the short game and the long game. And so, but we got to hammer her over these next... We're less than 80 days away. We've got to keep hammering her over their spending. We got to keep hammering them over the open border. The border needs to be shut down. We need to have those walls built. However it needs to be done, it needs to be shut down. We cannot keep letting people come in, to this nation. And so, but they're coming across in droves. It's unbelievable at how many people's coming across. And then their policy whenever it comes to police, defunding police. Reed, let me just say this. The Democrat Party is against walls, aren't they? To tell us their convention.
Right. Well, it's just very interesting because they're so anti-police. Like they've been campaigning on the police. And then they need the police to keep their DNC convention from looking bad.
Have you seen how, of course, we've seen the videos and the pictures. They've got gates, fences around it. Then they got another fence around it. Then they got police everywhere. They love the police right now. They don't want to defund the police right now. They want to defund the police in my area, in my home. They want to defund the police here. No. We got to hammer them on that because we cannot defund the police. We need our police officers. And so, I'm a Back to Blue supporter 100%. And we cannot be defunding the police, but that's what they want to do. The Democrat Party, come out a party of hypocrisy. We don't want a wall, but yet we're going to have a wall around our convention. But we're going to let our nation not have a wall. That's hypocrisy at its best. We want to defund the police until it's our convention, and now we need more police officers. That's hypocrisy at its best. And so that is something that the Democrat Party is pushing, and that's what they are after. And so they're spending their open border policy, defunding the police, and then their Green New Deal. They want to force all of us, to go to electric. Listen, I'm not against electric cars. I hate to say, I'm not against electric cars. Listen, if you want to buy an electric car, buy an electric car.
An electric car is fine as long as it's not forced on us.
Correct.
I mean,
Absolutely.
if you're an individual and you want to have an electric car and you want to have to charge it every 100 miles, or you want to have to deal with getting it towed because you couldn't make it to a charging station in time, that's your business.
Go for
I don't recommend it, but go ahead.
I'm going to drive a car. I'm going to drive a gas car. I'm going to put gas in my car. And the other day, I took my boys to school. When I got in the car, it was 5 miles to E. I'm not going to say who drove it last, and that's irrelevant, but it was 5 miles to E. And I didn't feel like stopping and getting gas, so I drove them all the way to school. And then when I got to school and dropped them off, I had 1 mile to E. So when I drove home and I got 1 mile away from school, it said 0 miles to E. And so I didn't stop and get gas. I drove all the way home. I got back and parked in the driveway, and then I left to go somewhere else, and I had to stop and get gas. But my car is like, I'm going to drive a gas car. But if you want to drive a electric car, go for it. But the government should not be demanding and writing legislation and forcing people by 2050 we're going to be all electric. First off, the electrical grid can't handle it. It has shut down this whole thing. Texas
That might be what they want.
Absolutely. Just a few years ago, Texas was that close from their whole state being shut down because of that ice storm. And so, but it was that close. Could you imagine adding millions of cars onto the grid? It couldn't handle the grid. And so we've seen them with their Green New Deal. Then their weak foreign policy. Listen, the reason why all of this war stuff is happening around the world is because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. If Donald Trump was in office, let me ask you a question. How many countries were invaded when Donald Trump was president?
Zero.
We had a lot of good things happening. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris is in office. You've got all of this war happening, people getting killed, and they say, well, Donald Trump is going to push us to World III.
We're backing Ukraine now, to be clear, who just invaded Kursk in Russia. That's done nothing but escalate under this Biden-Harris administration. We have Israel and Iran looking more and more like, hey, it's for real this time. There might actually be a widespread, devastating geopolitical conflict of the very sort that we've dreaded for all these centuries. And let's not forget that just a couple of weeks ago, the CIA was gunning for regime change in Venezuela, of all places. They were stirring up a news cycle about how Maduro is evil and all this other kind of stuff. And the opponent to Maduro was literally a CIA pick. This was a person whom the CIA has openly said they had backed to challenge Maduro there in Venezuela. So we've seen nothing but more coup attempts, more escalation in Ukraine, as well as just more disaster in the Middle East under Biden-Harris.
They're weak, and we had to hammer them with a weak foreign policy. And then their lies against Trump. Russia collusion. We heard that over and over again. The impeachments, 2 different impeachments where they came after Trump. The handling of COVID-19, blaming Trump for mishandling the pandemic. And election integrity, constantly saying Trump, undermined democracy for questioning the 2020 election results. And I cannot tell you how many Democrats were questioning the 2016 election results. And even Hillary Clinton still, would not accept, the fact that she lost. The moral failures, immigration policies, environmental deregulation, family separation, nepotism, racially divisive rhetoric, business conflicts, LGBTQ plus rights. I mean, they are constantly lying about Donald Trump, and a lot of these different areas accusing him of things that he shouldn't be accused of. Is Donald Trump perfect? No.
Nope.
But there's a lot of things that they are just out blatantly lying about whenever it comes to Donald Trump. Just lying. Like that whole Russia collusion thing. How he was colluding with Russia, to win the election.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because the left loves to give Alex Jones a hard time. They're trying to destroy Alex Jones. And Alex Jones did make a serious mistake whenever it came to Sandy Hook. And he's admitted that more times than anyone can possibly count. But has any conspiracy that Alex Jones ever talked about on his show or any other show for that matter been nearly as dangerous as the conspiracies that have been peddled by our own government? For example, the conspiracy that Saddam Hussein was harboring weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, right? That led to an invasion from the U.S. government that killed 1 million Iraqis and displaced several million more. And now this Russia collusion hoax It's been known that's been nothing but a conspiracy theory, if we're going to embellish such an idiotic term altogether. Just because a narrative is spun by the mainstream media does not mean it ceases to be a so-called conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I agree. And so whenever you look at all of these lies, where they're attacking Trump, then you look at their policy, all of their bad policy and what they're doing to America and how they're destroying the very foundation that this country was built upon. And then you look at the world, and the world is on fire. I mean, it is on fire. I mean, we are right on the brink of having a major, major conflict worldwide. And it's because of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So over the next 75 to 80 days, however many days are left, we have got to focus on their policy. We've got to focus on how bad they are whenever it comes to their policy. And if we'll do that, and if we will stay united as Republicans, and I really think, I'm hoping that Kennedy will drop out of the election, and I'm hoping that he will endorse, Donald Trump, whenever it comes to beating Kamala Harris in November. And I think that he possibly might and will, and I hope he does. That'll help get a lot more independents on board. So what we have to do is, as Republicans, we don't have the numbers to just beat the Democrat Party. We have got to have independents. We've got to have libertarians. We've got to have, those people come on our side and vote, for Donald Trump in order, to win. And so we've got to have them. And so that's why we have to focus on policy. That's why we have to focus on just how bad Kamala and Joe Biden and Tim Walz they are. We got to talk about the man that voted to put tampons in boy bathrooms. We got to talk about a party that's given, what I read last night was they've done 25 free abortions at the DNC. And we got to focus on those type of things, how they want to defund the police, how they have these open borders, inflation on going up. I mean, all of this stuff is happening. We just got to focus on that. Keep hammering, getting out that message. I've been posting a lot on social media the last week, and it's just hammering policy, staying on point, hammering policy. I'm not hammering my Republican brother, my Republican sister. We're focused on winning in November, and that is where we have to stay the course, to win in November. We got to stay focused on just how bad the Democrat Party is. Do I have disagreements with some of my Republican brothers and sisters? Yes. They disagree with me on some things, and I disagree with them on some things. But we all agree, at least for the large part, that we've got to win in November. And if we'll stay united, we can win in November. And then come January, let's debate all day, every day on policy. I love to debate. I love to have good debate. And but not right now. Right now, we need to focus on debating and beating Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Because if they get another 4 years, you just think it's bad today. You wait until 4 years from now and just see how bad it's going to be.
Yeah, well, Jim Sigelski, our other good friend, has said this many times, and I think he's 100% right. He's talked about how if they do win this election, if the enemy wins this election, it's game over for America. I don't like to surrender to pessimism. I like to think of myself as a pretty optimistic person, but in this instance, I think Jim Sigelski is right. I think it's 100% game over for this country, financially, geopolitically, culturally, every other front, every other axis of politics. I think that it's game over for America.
I agree, Reed. I've enjoyed this show today. I've enjoyed our conversation. And of course, we got a lot more shows to do before November gets here. And but as I like to say at the end of every show, is I want to say thank you, first off, for watching. I want to say thank you to all of you that have been supporting, God and Country. You've been supporting Chris McDaniel's America. I want to say thank you. You've been supporting the cartoons, everything, that the Midnight Ride is doing. And I appreciate your support for the Midnight Ride and all of the things that the Midnight Ride is doing to try to help save this great nation. If you watch today, I want to encourage you to share. If you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching on X, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Substack, wherever you're watching this episode, I want to encourage you, as I do every show, I would encourage you to share. Read social media. Twitter's getting better, but most social media platforms, they don't like conservative podcasts, conservative TV shows. They don't like conservative networks like this. And so we depend upon the people. We depend upon everyday Americans to help us get around that algorithm. And how we get around the algorithm is by you sharing on Facebook, by you retweeting on X, by you copying and pasting the link on YouTube and sending it to your friends and family. That is how we get out our message. The message of freedom, the message of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's how we get out this message. And so those of you that have shared, thank you. Those that are going to share, thank you. Those of you that have supported financially the Midnight Ride, thank you. Those of you that are going to support in the future, thank you. There's hundreds of ways for you to get involved and help us. And as far as helping us get out the message of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. God bless you. And God bless the great United States of America.
Hey guys, it's Reed here. I don't say this about a lot of people, but I have to say Mike Lindell is a real patriot, and we could not be more thankful to him and MyPillow for sponsoring today's episode of God and Country. Remember, go to MyPillow.com and save huge on a great night of sleep by entering the promo code Midnight Ride. Thanks.